Every year, refugee advocates take on a 16,500 kilometre journey on foot from Hobart to Canberra to highlight the prolonged uncertainty still facing thousands of refugees in Australia. Well, this year's Big Walk for Refugees is particularly timely, with the families of Palestinians left in limbo by visa cancellations, demanding answers from the federal government.
Refugee advocate Craig Foster is joining the walk in Sydney today, and he's generous enough to make time for us this morning. Thank you.
How are you guys?
You're not sort of warming up before your walk?
Not yet. As a general rule, I try to walk as little as possible.
Okay.
So today's going to be a bit of a challenge. I'll be at the back, no doubt about it.
Okay, no worries. Tell us more about why you're taking part in this walk.
Well, this is about around 10,000 refugees who've been in Australia for over 10 years and still don't have certainty. And so we're calling on Albo and Andrew Giles and the federal government to provide permanency for this 10,000 people. You know, in the last couple of years, Australia's made some good strides here. You know, there's been some steps forward, and that's been really wonderful to see. But we've still got this group of people who, you know, they can't, you know, the kids can't go to university. You know, you're talking 10 years. So there's some of their children have now finished school. They're our friends, they're our colleagues, they're in our communities. We know them, but often you don't realise that they're just on short-term visas. You know, moment by moment, month by month, because you know they can't talk about it. So it's up to us to speak out for them, and today we'll all come together and make a bit of noise.
It's odd, isn't it? Because these are the very same people who are living and working in Australia, within the community, you know, providing for the community, providing for their family as well. But they don't have the same rights as other Australians as well. And that uncertainty hanging over their head as well, that must make them very anxious.
Yes, they've got severe mental health problems, and you know, and their children. You know, you're not sure. You're in between two worlds. You know, like are you part of Australia, or you know, are you going to be forced, you know, somewhere else at some point? And you're going to school. You know, all your friends are here. You know, everyone's safe and comfortable and looked after, and so they think. You know, the question they're asking is, you know, why not us as well? And that's what we're asking of the federal government. As you say, they're, you know, working, the parents, you know, paying taxes. They're next to you. They're on the bus. They're on the train. They're on the light rail, and so they're one of us. But they have to live month to month to month. And what that also means, of course, is they haven't seen their families abroad very often, and that means children and parents and others for over 10 years. So, you know, Australia's in the last 20 years in particular, we've been in a pretty bad space here, and so we've just started to come out of it, I think, and that's a credit to everyone in the country who supported this cause for, you know, just fairness and compassion for people who fled persecution and were seeking safety. But we still have some steps to make, and so, you know, this is a group, it's, you know, 10,000 people in the scheme of things is absolutely nothing. But next week, I think Tuesday week, there's a group of young people here who are going to go down to Parliament and actually speak to the government and say, this is how we feel, this is the impact on us of impermanence. And we're always asking Australians to just think, look, what if it was you? You know, that's the most important thing. You know, if it was me and my 3 kids, you know, I'd be deeply, deeply upset, and I don't want that for these people, and I don't think any Australians do.
As we say, this comes at a particularly timely time, with the government cancelling the visas of some Palestinians who'd already left Gaza. They're now stranded in third countries.
Showing.
The government says it makes no apologies for prioritising national security, but what do you make of the way this has been handled?
Yeah, I think the politics of it is quite interesting, because my question to Australia is this, and I often, everywhere I go in the country, I always ask the same question, saying, look, if you were in a situation where people are dying, they're being killed next to you, now there's bombs raining down, you know, any conflict, but this is a particularly horrific one, and you had any chance to get out or to get your family out, if there's one Australian that's going to look me in the eye and try and be honest and say that you're not going to get your family out of there, then you know, I have to disagree with you, right? We would do anything to get out, and all of these people are family members, relatives of our Australian Palestinian community who in many ways have been left behind and treated unfairly, which I don't like in a multicultural country. I think every single community should be treated exactly the same. And you know, when we had Afghanistan, for example, people were trying to do anything to get across the border and escape the Taliban. And I would get the hell out of Gaza if I possibly could, and I would get my kids out and I'd get my relatives out. So let's not hold that against people. And I think what we've talked about in the last 20 years, we've struggled around this issue of people smugglers, and no one wants to see that happen. But this is not a simplistic conversation. What we need to realise is, in Afghanistan, for example, I'm aware of many Australians who were left behind when the airport was closed, and who were paying security companies to get across the border. Okay. Now, would you do that for your own family, or would you not? Right? Of course you would. Right? Every Australian would, and yet we turn around and say, oh, well, we can't do this, or these people are wrong. Okay, we need to finally have a decent conversation about the drivers in conflict of people having to flee and get out. And these people have already had more security checks than anyone. They are relatives of one of our most precious communities, and they should be given the visas immediately. It's simply not right. There's people, I think families, and one young man, they're in the airport, and I mean, you're already traumatised, and now you're like, well, this country said yes, and now you said no, we can't do that.
Just before we let you go, the big walk, of course, taking place, but it's taking place across Australia, and you don't actually have to walk, because you can do it virtually as well.
You can do it virtually as well. So they wanted to, as you said, like I think from Hobart to Canberra, is one lap of Australia. At the moment, I think today will be 3, and so it's like 50,000 kilometres. There's been, over 1,000 people doing it. Something like 2.5 million steps every day. This is the passion and I think compassion that Australians are rightly showing now. And as I said before, we're just coming into a much better period in Australia, and let's not walk back on that. And certainly in this next election, okay, let's not let anyone put us in a position where we start to demonise migrants again, demonise refugees, and use that for political purposes. We don't need to. We've seen it. It doesn't work. It hurts people. Let's keep walking this track and be fair and make sure that we're compassionate to everyone. And so today is just a great opportunity for us to do this. It is raining, so bring your brollies. And if you're looking for me, I'll be the one at the very rear, walking on the old football knees and going very, very slow.